And now, a thought from Mann. I'm honestly kind of surprised by Legend Quest. I didn't really see any trailers for it, and I didn't hear a lot of hype, but after seeing a few people talk about it and say it's sort of on the same quality of Gravity Falls, I watched it and I was absolutely right in assuming it wasn't on the same quality of Gravity Falls.
That's dumb.
But that doesn't mean it's a bad series. It actually is surprisingly pretty good. I really can honestly say that. I was kind of surprised by it.
Yahtzee!
The show is based on these old Mexican cartoons whose names I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I'm going to butcher them. The show doesn't really rely on the past too much. It's sort of in the same vein as the new Voltron series in that you don't have to watch the old stuff to be able to get this new stuff. Granted, it kinda has a feeling of you should know this while going in, but it's kinda neither here nor there. You won't be too lost as long as you watch all the way through. It's a pretty good show riddled with a lot of lore to it. The main premise is about a boy named Leo Samwan who's prophesized to defeat the great evil Quetzalcoatl after his hometown is taken from him. He sets off on an adventure to save his hometown with his friends by his side. And it's kind of a weak story, mainly because of the whole prophecy thing. It's like, really? You really want to try to build this guy up like that? Come on. We haven't seen him in action, so maybe you shouldn't be building him up like that. I get you're going for a don't judge a book by its cover thing here, but you shouldn't have to tell us that. It should be more of a, he's just gonna progress as he goes along versus going the route of, oh, he's gonna be great in the future, just wait and see. It's like, we should just watch him. You shouldn't tell us to wait for the future. That just kind of irks me. But overall, it's pretty nice. If you could just get past the prophecy thing, you'll have no problems here.
Magnificent, don't you think?
The main character, Leo, is basically the leader of the group. He's sort of your everyman character. He laughs, he cries, he can be dramatic, he can be happy and ecstatic about things. That's just kind of the simple thing about him. He works to serve the story. Leo's joined by 3 friends, one of them being Theodora, who's dressed in modern clothing and even has a cell phone. Granted, this whole thing kind of takes place in the 19th century, so it's kind of like, how is she having a cell phone and in this modern clothing? But as you go along, you'll find out what's going on with her. And very early on, when you find out that her and another friend of theirs named Don Andreas are ghosts. Don Andreas is another friend that helps Leo out throughout his journey, and to me, he just really didn't leave much of an impact. He's more of a silly character who just kind of is there. Ultimately, he's just there. He didn't have too much lore, or it just wasn't that interesting. He just wasn't the most interesting out of everybody. There's another friend of theirs called Alabrije who is just a clusterfuck of what the hell, because when I look at him, I just go, what the hell is that? I can't pinpoint anything about him. He has ladybug wings, he's, I just get a headache just trying to figure out what the fuck he is, so it's like, he just exists. I don't know what the hell he is, but he exists. He's basically the comic relief of the group, and he does help out when he needs to, but sometimes it's more in an airheaded way, like he'll know something about something, but he won't tell them about it because he thought it was pretty obvious that they should know about it. In that sense, it's like, okay, that's kind of stupid, you should have just told them, like, what? You can't assume they know everything about all this, like, what?
Right now, we have to find the portal.
What portal?
The door reads the Nexus. It's around here somewhere.
I know where the portal is. It's right this way.
Wait a minute. You can smell magical spaces?
You can't?
But in a sense, he could come off a bit funny when he needs to. Not that funny, but just enough to sort of lighten the tension. There's sort of a weird thing going on with all 3 of these guys. With the ghosts, sometimes they can be seen by the humans, but sometimes they can't be seen, which is kind of inconsistent. I get it, they're supposed to be invisible, but they don't really make them invisible. So it's like, if they're going invisible, we should be aware they're going invisible. There's a weird thing going on with Alabrije where every new location they go, the citizens end up seeing him as some sort of animal that fits in with their location. And it's kind of like, did they need to do that? I don't get why they do that. It's just kind of odd. It just comes off as strange and unnecessary ultimately. But for the most part, it's not like it's in the way. It's just sort of a weird little thing they got going on. It doesn't really take away from the series at all.
That's nice.
The show kinda has a problem with introducing its characters. On the first episode, when you meet everybody, you're just kind of wondering, okay, who are these people? What's going on with them? I'm kind of curious. But that ultimately works in its favor because it's making you curious and wanting to figure out the answers to all these questions. It does well in grabbing your attention and getting you to want to figure out the answers. So you ultimately start sticking around. And as it goes along, it does actually answer the questions for you. It doesn't lead you on for too long, especially since it's only a 13 episode season. Maybe there'll be a season 2, I'm not too sure. But if you do have questions that you want answered for season 1, they will answer them. And that's honestly good in my opinion, is when you answer questions in the season versus throughout the whole series. Because usually when you try to answer questions throughout the whole series, you might end up bringing in more questions to be answered and it starts piling up, and eventually you might negate questions that needed answers. So it's kind of best to be a bit self-contained, and I kind of like this series for that.
For weeks, there have been mysterious signs that something otherworldly has been going on.
Told you.
Have you seen anything else that's odd, Leo? Perhaps one of these?
That one! It made my abuela's eyes white like milk. There's a bunch of them out there.
The animation, I really have to say this, it holds this series back something serious. And this show definitely pulls a major Thundercats. Like, the intro is gorgeous. It looks pretty good. It gets you kind of hyped up. You're like, wow, this is going to be an amazing series. Then you get to the actual show and it's like, holy crap, what happened? Like, oh god, is this a Canadian show? Because it's all animated in Flash animation, and it's not exactly really good Flash animation, it's just kind of passable animation. But it's kind of forgivable because the characters and the story is kind of engaging enough that you can ignore it. So I give them a pass on that. Like I said, it is passable animation. It does the job of getting the characters to move. It just could have been better.
Aw, man!
The villains of the series are kind of weak, honestly. There's one character named Baba Yaga who's constantly harassing our heroes, constantly getting in the way and trying to hurt them or destroy them, but she's ultimately a servant to the main bad guy, Quetzalcoatl. He's mentioned more than he's shown. I really find that annoying that it's like, you built up this guy, hell, you have a fucking prophecy, and yet you barely show him. I don't even get to know the guy, so it's like, why should I give a shit? I mean, yeah, he fucked with the main character's hometown, but ultimately, you never showed him, so I really didn't get to know him. I don't know much about his motivation until like the last episode. Like, really? Come on. So yeah, the villains are pretty weak, ultimately. I just kind of wish they did a bit better. Hell, Baba Yaga probably should have been the main villain because she constantly was present. She constantly would harass the heroes. So it's just annoying that Quetzalcoatl's the big bad, but he's barely shown and is mentioned more than he's shown. It's just irksome.
You will bear my full wrath, boy.
This series is ultimately pretty good. It might be a bit of a climb, but because it's only 13 episodes, you can binge watch it pretty fast, and honestly, that's recommended that you binge it. Because if you don't, you're just going to be left with a bunch of unanswered questions, and you're going to feel pretty dissatisfied with the series, but once you finish it, you'll feel pretty satisfied. The villains could have been better, like I said, but they're not something that's a major detriment. The animation does hold this series back because it's like, come on, this could be really good. Like, I'm interested in Mexican lore, and this is a Mexican cartoon, so I'm thinking, yeah, this is gonna be really good. I'm gonna really enjoy this. But for the most part, it's just, it's passable, but it's just kind of a workout trying to get through it. It's a Netflix original series, so it shouldn't be difficult to get through it. It's easier than, say, Troll Hunters, which has 26 episodes, yet by the middle of it, it feels like a season finale. Here, when you get to the season finale, it feels like a season finale. It's a nice show. The characters are a major driving point. It has a lot of lore to really engage you and raise questions, and it answers them pretty well. It's just really a nice, pleasant surprise. But that's just a thought.
So you can rock this